Hello, everyone.
Hello everyone, this is Vrinda here with Vaidya Manjari Nadkarni, and today we are here to talk about Kapha Prakriti. And I am very excited personally for Kapha Prakriti because I am Kapha. My dominant personality is Kapha. So I cannot wait more, Manjari, to listen to more about Kapha Prakriti and the characteristics and whatnot.
Yeah, no, this is interesting because see, when I started understanding the Prakriti, it totally
Mhm,
changed my own life. I really could understand myself much better.
mhm,
And I am a Kapha dominant Pitta
mhm.
secondary as well.
Okay.
So, one of the most interesting things about Kapha is, like I used to be so slow,
Okay.
So we are like slow to start. So kapha, the dosha is made up of, it's one of the three bioenergies for those that are new here.
Mhm.
It is one of the three doshas that have to be balanced at all times.
Okay.
And what it means to be a kapha dosha is formed from water and earth, right? So the
Mhm,
earth has a lot of stability, it has a lot of structure to it. And water has more like fluidity, water also has more emotions, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
once you combine water and earth, it almost becomes clay like. So it's more resilient, right? People can spring back. And people, if you look at clay, or water and earth versus the previous ones that we've seen, either fire
Yeah,
or water, air, it also has a lot of weight, right? So
true.
Kaffas are people who always struggle with weight.
Lose weight,
Uh,
tend to gain more
struggling
weight.
to lose weight. Yeah, they are. If you are on a diet plan, if you are, that's what my husband used to tell me, that you're always on something. And if you are perpetually trying different ways to lose weight, if you are perpetually, if you feel you've been called chubby since growing up, or if you've been on the heavier side, if you have a stockier build, if you have a larger frame, if you have a larger forehead,
Mhm, mhm,
eyes, a slight roundish tip to the nose. So
mhm.
they're all some physical characteristics of this Kapha Prakriti, right?
Okay.
And
Mhm,
Kapha is, as I mentioned, it's the combination of water and earth. So there is
mhm,
a lot of stability in the body. So you're not going to, and there'll also be a lot of inertia because of this natural
mhm,
stability. You're not like a Vata person who wants to constantly go. Like you
mhm.
hate activities. Like all of my activities are is sitting and tending to my plants and really connecting with the earth. So I love that. But even like knitting or reading books or watching TV, or even the hobbies for a Kapha Prakriti person are going to be very sedentary. And
True.
you
Yeah.
need to actually focus on um, like some physical activity to be able to stay balanced in your
Mhm,
body.
mhm,
So this is the one thing that kaffas always, think that, oh, I don't need anything. I'm just gonna sit down and be calm. But you need more activity if you are a kapha type, right? Otherwise, you can be obese or overweight, and
mhm,
you can start developing issues like cholesterol or high triglycerides or
mhm.
diabetes. So these are all conditions you're prone to because of
Okay.
your body type.
Mhm. Okay. So,
So
yeah, knowing about the characteristics, what more do should we do, and what we should not do, being a
yeah,
kapha.
sorry, I'll describe more characteristics,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you are, see, you are a kapha, how do you spot a kapha? You're going to be larger frame, right? You're
Yeah.
going to be well proportioned. If you look at a vata type, a vata person is going to have either an eyebrow raised over the other or a ear placed slightly lower. But kaphas are very pleasant. Like when you look at them, they're very pleasant. I think because of the roundedness, there's no sharp
Mhm,
angles in the face. So they're
mhm.
pleasant. They're people whom you can share your secrets with, or these are stable people that you can trust.
Right.
And
Right.
kafas, if you are that friend whom people call at 1 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock at night, uh,
Mhm,
so you are a kapha type because you also have this empathy that you support everybody else. So you're
mhm.
very nurturing by nature because kapha dosha itself is the bioenergy of nourishment, nurturing.
True. True.
So if you
Okay.
have dominance of kapha in your body, you're going to be extremely nurturing. So
Mhm,
if you're a mom, if you're a kapha mom, you'll be an amazing mom, totally hands on all the time with your kids, and your life probably revolves around the kids. I'm not
mhm.
saying other moms are not going to pay attention to
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Kaffas go all in, with their emotions and all. Now, because of the kapha nature itself, they're going to be heavy, often obese. They will
Mm-hmm.
have difficulty losing weight. They will have a slower metabolism, and they're also going to have a sluggish digestion or a weak digestion.
Right.
So, if
Okay.
they overeat, they're not going to digest the food. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Overeating is really bad for them because the agni or the digestive capacity is not as strong. And
Okay.
even if you eat a little bit more, you're not going to digest it well.
Mm-hmm.
So for these people, one way, if you we've heard about intermittent fasting, so I'll be
Yeah.
talking a little bit about intermittent fasting and why that works for a kapha type. Now,
Okay.
always they're going to have oily skin, they're going to have a smooth skin, it's going to be clear and pale. And when people ask me about my skin, I have the classical kapha skin,
Mm-hmm.
if you are more pitta, then you're more prone to acne and all, but a kapha skin is going to be clear, smooth, and you don't have to really oil it or moisturize it
Moisturize
even
it.
in
Yeah.
winter time. So even winter time, I don't require a lot of moisturizing because my skin is naturally oily.
Yeah.
The hair is going to be thick and oily, curly or wavy hair. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a voice which is very melodious. My voice is not melodious, but it's monotonous. So there's no different pitches, it's going to be kind of that one line. So
Mm-hmm.
that's typical characteristic of the voice. And these voices are amazing for meditation or calming you down, so if you hear someone's voice and the voice itself is grounding and soothing you, that's probably a kapha
Right.
voice.
Okay. Okay.
The speech is going to be slow, the movements are going to be slow. You will take your own sweet time for everything in life if you're a kapha type, so even waking up, getting out of the bed, is going to be like you will take your own time. And this is something my dad used to tease me when I was a kid and I would help around with the chores. So one thing my dad would tease me was, if you start cutting vegetables as night, you should be ready for next day's breakfast.
Wow.
Yeah, so whenever my mom would give me something to do, and he's like, "Oh, I think we're gonna be ready by tomorrow morning." So I would take my own sweet time, and that's a classical kapha sign. You hate being rushed. You hate doing two, three things on the go. Like you absolutely hate it. So you want to take your sweet time. You want to get dressed. You want to, just do whatever you want, but you take your time. Now, kaphas are people that hate a lot of cold and humid environment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to endurance and stamina, right? Even though you're slightly on the heavier side, you
Mm-hmm.
are having amazing stamina.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the story of the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
So a tortoise is classically a kapha animal. So it's
Mm-hmm.
going to eat a leaf and live
Mm-hmm.
like 100 years. And
Mm-hmm.
rabbits, they can eat up your entire garden. They can mate, but they die out pretty easily, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Tortoise, slow and steady,
Mm-hmm.
is tortoise, and that's going to live for a long time because the preservation, the nourishment is really high. And that's a classic of a kapha type, so the endurance, the stamina, the energy, the potential energy is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
kaphas also have very fixed, like there's stability in the opinions as well. Their thoughts don't change, they don't keep changing constantly, they are very loyal, extremely. They hate change, they like stability. So whether
Right.
it's relationships or whether it's their career, whether it's their life overall, they don't like any kind of change, so they're not going to be fond of too many people or too many other things, so they like to stick to maybe one thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
usually they're very gentle, they are very calm and mild mannered, and they also have like a joyful disposition. So
Mm-hmm.
that's very typical of a kapha type.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
So
It's a
now we
huge list of characteristics, and that's very good to know.
yeah, no, and it is pretty amazing, so when you start understanding about your own
Yeah.
body type or prakriti, that
Mm-hmm.
you start getting a little bit more insight into your own being, because why are we a certain way, we are a certain way not just because of the genetics 100%, but even prakriti is determined by your genes too, right? Because you're getting
Mm-hmm.
it from your parents.
Right. Right.
This is the important part of a kapha, is that you're a natural nurturer, you're a natural healer as well. And
Mm-hmm.
the flip side is sometimes everybody else takes a precedence over you. So your own health is going to take a backseat, but you'll care
Mhm.
for your kids and maybe your patients and everything else, but you yourself take a backseat. So
Okay.
that
Hmm.
sometimes can be a challenge for a kapha. Like usually they are not sick all the time, they're very nourished, very resilient. But sometimes, they tend to ignore themselves. So
Okay.
hello, Mr. Rajan. Good morning. How are you today? So if you're watching us live, you have any questions, please let me know. And if you are a kapha dominant, please post it in the chat. We would love to know that as well, because we are both really excited
Yeah.
this topic and we're super excited. So, kapha in nature is found, during the springtime. So that's why we did a spring kapha cleanse that I'm
Right.
almost finishing now.
Hmm.
And when we come to life stages, kapha is dominant in childhood. And that's why most babies are like nice and round. If you look at the faces of the babies,
Hmm.
they're going to be round and chubby.
Yeah.
So typically, because it's the growth stage of your life, it's the kapha dominant stage.
Hmm.
And that's why all the babies are nice and bouncy and round and very resilient, right?
Vaishali is saying that I feel you described me, and same I am feeling the same, Manjari.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and there are lots of kapha types, So kapha, like it's that energy. And Vaishali, you're a kapha as well, kapha dominant, as I said.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She like she feels like you are describing her, and I'm feeling you're describing me.
Yeah, and I think I'm describing myself. So it's like a big kapha party happening here.
Yeah.
So what happens is, kapha is going to govern a lot of different, your nourishment, your joints, even your brain. Like you have kapha everywhere in the body, each and every cell. So kapha characteristic, that's a good thing, So the prakriti is the fixed part that never changes. But
Okay.
as
Hmm.
we naturally age, as we go from childhood, the middle age is governed by the pitta, and as we age, that's the adulthood or the senior years, that's governed by vata.
Hmm.
So when we start getting a dominance of vata and kapha, the only quality they both have similar is the coolness or the cold quality.
Okay.
But otherwise, vatas can be dry, kafas are extremely moist and oily. So if
Mm-hmm.
you start experiencing a lot of dryness in your skin, as you age, that's because the kapha is, balanced out by excess of vata.
Hmm. Hmm.
Prakriti technically does not change, but you can definitely have vata aggravation happening. And
Hmm.
that's something I've also found in myself. The past few years, I had been super busy with multiple
Hmm.
activities and always keeping
Right.
myself busy, and that creates vata aggravation. So I have to
Okay.
consciously slow down now,
Okay.
try to focus on my own
Yeah.
health, go back
Sure.
to my
Yeah.
own Prakriti, and make sure it's nurtured. Yeah. So, any questions that you have?
Let's talk about food, Manjiri. I would love to know what to eat, what to avoid.
So everything that you love, sweet, salty, sour, is to be avoided for a kapha time.
Okay.
Right? So we are in the mango season, but any sweet fruits, grapes, bananas, you
Hmm.
have to avoid it.
Hmm.
And any cold drinks, pop, ginger ale, excess sugar, or even greasy, heavy foods.
Hmm.
Typically, any fast food is classically kapha aggravating. So any
Okay.
fast foods, whether it's burgers or pizzas or any of those, you have to
Yeah.
avoid it.
Yeah.
Excess of sugar, jaggery, agave nectar, so even sweeteners, adding too many sweets in your
Hmm.
diet
Hmm.
is a problem. The
Okay.
only sweetener that is actually balancing to the kapha is honey.
Okay.
And it's
Okay.
raw, unpasteurized honey. And if you
Hmm.
can buy it slightly older, it becomes more medicinal.
Right.
So
Right.
honey is slightly astringent. It can help cut through that kapha. But
Hmm.
other sweeteners, whether you're talking about sugar or even jaggery or agave or anything that has fructose or sucrose, glucose, these are all typically kapha aggravating molecules as well.
Hmm.
So cakes, pastries, desserts, pizzas, burger, dairy,
Everything I like, right?
mango lassi, right? Uh, Again, if you look at red meat, which is
Mhm.
the staple diet here in Canada. Like we don't eat it typically, but that's the staple diet here. Or
Yeah.
animal fats, lard, marrow,
Mhm.
that's all kapha promoting. And overeating or frequent snacking. I've seen so many people eat, oh, I graze throughout the day, right? I'm eating different kinds of food. So but I'm grazing throughout the day. I don't eat much at a time. So that activity itself is going to increase kapha because you end up overeating or you're constantly pushing your agni, right? That
Mhm.
creates the sluggishness of your digestive fire, and you will
Mhm.
end up gaining weight if you are a kapha type, right? If you're a vata dominant person, if your agni worsens or your digestive capacity worsens, you will find it easy to lose weight,
Mhm.
right? Because you're not going to pick up the nutrients. If you're a kapha type, you will pick up some nutrients, but you'll start making excess body fat
Mhm.
and will end up gaining weight, right? So, a few questions that what about dairy? So, any dairy, milk, especially yogurt, especially any soft cheeses,
Mhm.
ghee to a certain extent is going to increase your kapha, right? So,
Mhm.
ghee have to eat it, but you have to make sure you're digesting it. Butter as well. So all dairy is increasing kapha and decreases vata, right?
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
it, it's sour dairy, any like sour milk, sour cream, anything
Mhm.
sour is going to increase kapha as well as pitta.
Okay. Okay.
So even yogurt, and buttermilk, the freshly churned buttermilk is better than yogurt because you're taking all the butter off, and what's remains is like a sour, tart, almost astringent product. So that is tolerable for a kapha type.
Mhm.
Always add spices. So if you're making buttermilk, you can add some chili peppers if you like spice, coriander, cumin, fennel.
Mhm.
You can add some cilantro and
Mhm.
make it like a nice chash, is what we call,
Yeah. Yeah.
and make it a light buttermilk. So you're adding lots of water and minimal
Less.
dairy.
Less. Yeah. Less
Now,
yogurt. Yeah.
better than cow dairy, goat dairy is going to be better, right? For a
Okay.
kapha type because it's going to be easier to digest.
Mhm.
And if you look at bigger animals like even buffalo, because I know some places, in India as well, they drink buffalo milk. So
Mhm.
that's even more kapha aggravating
Okay. Mhm.
than cow dairy, right? So again, the cows here are really like strong. If you look at the Indian cows, they're tiny.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Right? So the bigger the animal, the more kapha the animal is as well. The
Mhm.
more inactive the animal is, the more kapha builds up in the animal. So if you look at factory farming nowadays, the cows
Mhm.
are not moving, they're not going in the pastures, they hardly have any activity that builds up a lot of kapha in the body.
Mhm.
And that's going to be more inflammatory. That's going to, that's how the milk is going to be. It's going to be heavier. It's going
Heavier.
to be
Yeah.
more sluggish as well.
Mhm.
Meats, definitely, most meats. So if you are a kapha type and if you really want fish, you can have, because fish is warming, and white meat, which means like the breast or meat of chicken or turkey is fine, but any heavier cuts of meat is not going to work that well for people.
Mhm. Mhm. Kirtana has a question as well. Hi, doctor. I'm of Pitta Kapha constitution. Wanted to get that Kapha delaying attitude down.
So what happens is, I think what you're saying is the procrastination, right? So that's a perpetual struggle for a kapha type, right? And I was reading something about psychology the other day, or there's this podcast by a neurologist, and one of the things he said was people sometimes delay it because they get that thrill from the last minute panic, and I think I'm one of those, because last minute, like, I don't like spending energy, right?
Mhm.
I'm a kapha. I like conserving energy. So last
Mhm.
minute, I know my focus is going to be fantastic in those last hour, before the submission. One thing you can do is, if you're feeling overall heavy, right? If you're feeling physically bogged down as well as mentally,
Mhm.
try adding some spices. So sharper spices, especially like black pepper, cinnamon, can cut through excess kapha. And
Mhm.
these spices also stimulate you, right? Not just the body, but they'll also reflect on the mind.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing. And kaphas, the tendency is to get cluttered, like you have too many things.
Mhm.
Kapha also is like a glue, so the word kapha is very nourishing, but kapha also acts like a glue. So
Mhm.
you're attracted to a lot of things as well. So you're
Mhm.
going to typically, going to have too many things, too much clutter around you. So if that's the case, try minimalism. Is hard for a kapha, but I think they are the ones who need it most, because you have too many things all the time. You have a lot
Yes.
of attachment. And if you keep your environment clean, if you just focus on one or two things, you can get it done faster, so
Mhm.
that's a really good point, about the water intake. So kaphas don't require too much water, right? You can drink 6 to 8 glasses. Always drink warm water. If you're a kapha type, you can also drink teas. You can add some cinnamon or some turmeric or ginger to your tea, which is going to be, more supporting your digestion.
Mhm.
Always warm water to hot water. And if you're looking for that weight loss or feeling light in the body, the hot water, warm water itself is going to help you with detoxification to a certain level. And kaphas need a lot of exercise, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
kaphas,
Okay.
lot in the sense, like every single day you have to move your body. You
Mhm.
need vigorous activity as well. You can't just go for a walk if you want to lose weight, or you know you don't need exercise as per se too much if you're looking at maintaining the weight. But if you're looking to lose weight, right,
Mhm. Mhm.
you will need more exercise, and you're having a good stamina and endurance, and you
Mhm.
can do a lot more exercising. So
Mhm.
exercises for a kapha type, rather than doing a lot of weight training, if you do more cardio, that's going to be a better option,
Mhm.
right?
So,
So with
Manjari, just a
yeah.
quick question. So, you when a person is kapha pitta, will these in spices which you named now, are they okay for them as well? Like cinnamon and black pepper.
So if you have too much pitta, or if you have conditions like gastritis, then I would avoid that. I would maybe use cumin, coriander, fennel.
Okay.
Those are the
Okay.
easier spices,
Mhm.
especially if you have gastritis. But even dry ginger works really well, for a kapha. It's going to help you digest, and it's
Mhm.
also going to help you clear out that mental boggedness, right?
Okay. Sure.
So, exercise is like a must on a regular basis. 30 minutes every single day, walking or any kind of exercise. You can also do running or swimming, which is going to be a little bit more exercise.
Mhm.
And kapha of the sluggishness, the more you sit, the more sluggish you're going to feel, right? So
Right.
exercising in the morning is important. So
More I sleep, I want to sleep more.
I
That
know.
happens to me.
And kaphas are deep sleepers, you will sleep no matter what. So again, from my childhood, I have so many stories. I would just sleep, and my mom would throw some water on me to wake me up, that it's school or college, and I would just, in my sleep, I would be like, no, I have the day off, and I would just blabber something to get out of school. And I would even sleep in that water what she'd thrown in me. So there are so many times I've slept in that water because I just didn't want to wake up, right? So kaphas love their sleep, and they can sleep anywhere and everywhere. So they don't
True.
struggle with
True.
sleep.
People struggle with the change of places, change of pillows as well. I do not.
Yeah, yeah. So sleep is like really, and kaphas do not need a lot of sleep. Like if you start sleeping for 10 hours and something, you will start feeling more sluggish, right?
Yeah, true,
So
true.
you need to do that. So now Hanka is asking how to increase kapha for someone who cannot gain weight, a woman, Vata Prakriti, please. So the first thing you have to do is stop any activities that are creating this excess aggravation of Vata first, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that happens typically is overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a nice chapter, where we talk about obesity and weight loss in Ayurveda in the Charak Samhita, where it talks about that if you stop worrying, right? If you stop worrying, that will help you l- gain weight, right?
Okay.
So the first thing a vata needs to do is stop worrying. Some practices you will start having to incorporate, like even abhyanga massages, oil massage to stabilize your body is
Mm-hmm.
going to help with kapha. And to increase kapha, you can have a diet which is more dominant in nourishing foods.
Mm-hmm.
So sweet does not mean a lot of sugar, but you can have dairy, you can have cottage cheese, you can have fruits, you can have different vegetables. Make sure you are having good amounts of protein.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing is also to focus on your metabolism or your liver, right? So for people who are absolutely not gaining weight or not gaining muscle mass,
Mm-hmm.
usually there's an issue going on with the liver. So if you correct that, it will lead to weight gain as well. Different herbs like shatavari or ashwagandha can support as well. And
Mhm.
gentle massage, yes, 100%. So massaging or even oil massages, abhyanga, work fantastic. There are specific oils, bala ashwagandha, which are also strengthening. So they will work very well too. When that comes to the kapha, it is opposite. So if you're struggling with weight gain, right, you have to do what's known as udvartan or a dry rub. So rather than taking a lot of oil, you can massage with oil, right?
Mhm.
But make sure the oil has some kind of camphor or something that's stimulating the circulation. And
Mhm.
because of this excessive heaviness,
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
kapha has, you're
Mhm.
not, and kapha is also cold, so the circulation is not going to be as good. So your
Yeah.
hands feel have a tendency to get cold.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
always like warm oil. You can put a bit of camphor in the oil. You can massage, and this is for a kapha type.
Mhm.
And then you can take some triphala or some dry powders. You can take chickpea flour and do a dry rub as well, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
this triphala really belly region or the gluteal region, if you think that you're having excess fat, excess cellulite, that really helps.
Mhm.
Triphala is a fantastic herb that's really supporting detoxification of your entire body, and it's
Mhm.
balancing to all three doshas. Now, when
Mhm.
it comes to kapha diet, I talked about what not to eat. So, what should you eat now? You need to eat bitter, pungent, and astringent foods. So,
Mhm.
bitter can be, any kind of chicory or dandelion or Swiss chard, kale, bitter melon. So, anything that tastes bitter
Yeah.
is going to help stimulate your digestion. It's
Mhm.
going to gently detoxify your body and also help with weight loss.
Mhm.
Anything that's pungent, which is more spices, spices can cut through excess kapha in the system,
Okay.
and they will also stimulate you. They will enhance your circulation, add
Mhm.
warmth to the body.
To the
And
body.
astringent is the other taste. So
Mhm.
astringent is the taste of beans, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So astringent also is going to soak up this excess moisture. If you're retaining a lot of water, there's something going on in your body where there's a lot of fluids that's retained, the astringent will kind of absorb that as well.
Okay.
And a
Okay.
vegetarian diet is better suited for a kapha type. So if
Mhm.
a kapha type goes for a paleo diet,
Mhm.
it is actually a terrible thing because they're not going to be able to do it well. Paleo diet, typically heavier cuts of meat or lots of fat, is going to make you feel bogged down. Uh, Even having, a lot of keto diet, I experimented with keto diet because I love to experiment. It was
Mhm.
terrible. It was just horrible, because dairy, I don't have dairy, and having all that fat was just like not working, right? So any kind of diet, like you have to make sure you're having lots of leafy greens in your diet, like literally lots and lots. So not in the form of salads, but if you have them cooked, so Swiss chard, beet tops, kale, collards, you can cook all the vegetables and have at least half plate full of vegetables. Always eat light and warm foods, right? So whatever you eat, it has to be warm, and it has to be light and not heavy. So oats are going to be much lighter than wheat, or even puffed grains. So if you're having something like puffed rice or mamra or kurmara, it's going
Mhm.
to be much lighter than rice. So that's definitely something you can have. Ginger, you can have coffee. Kafas need coffee. Kafas really have a lot of issues with kickstarting their day,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
coffee, and they can tolerate it as well. So if you're a kapha, definitely you are allowed to have coffee. Occasionally, don't get addicted to it. As a sweetener, use honey. Plenty of sauteed vegetables, always spices. You can have some white meat. Try
Mhm.
to avoid red meat, but if you do vegetarian food, if you do beans, lentils, quinoa, you will feel much better, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
eat only when you're hungry. And
Mhm.
one thing I wanted to mention was intermittent fasting. So for a kapha type, try to fast between meals.
Okay.
And the 6 times a day, 5 times a day doesn't work for a kapha type. Kapha type need to eat 2 or 3 maximum meals. You should
Mhm.
not be eating throughout the day. You should not eat too much at a time. So
Mhm.
that's really important. So
Mhm.
Vaishali is asking, what are my thoughts about bitter melon juice? Would it help? So bitter melon juice is very bitter. That's my fault. Um, So if you have excess of kapha, you can, because I know you, I wouldn't recommend it for you. You can have occasional karela chips or you can have it as a vegetable, but
Vegetable, yeah.
you don't need to keep drinking if you have vata aggravation going on at the same time. A pure kapha with kapha aggravation, bitter melon will work really well. Bitter melon, if you look at some of the things I'm recommending, bitter melon is really good for a kapha type, so is fenugreek, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
these are all, or turmeric is also fantastic, and these are
right.
all blood sugar balancers.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
kaphas are prone to diabetes, they're prone to excess blood sugar,
mhm,
and definitely having less amounts of sugar, having foods that balance your blood sugar is
mhm,
extremely important. So whether it's bitter melon, whether it's fenugreek, whether it's cinnamon, these are all going to really help you balance your kapha.
mhm.
Any other questions?
Manjari, on the chat, I have given you links to the Triphala powder and Triphala capsule. If you could put
Yeah,
them,
yeah, yeah. No, I'm just going to.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so kaphas, like this is the springtime. So this is the time where it's challenging for a lot of kaphas because you will feel a little bit more like bogged down or
Mhm,
not your 100%. You'll feel more sluggish. Um,
mhm,
because it's the kapha season, right? So
mhm,
make sure you're doing a lot of activity. And
mhm,
for me, again, I hate like a lot of exercising. I
mhm.
love walking, I can walk, and I love gardening. So, I'm planning to kind of do a lot of digging and everything in my garden, which is a physical activity. So,
True, true.
because they don't like physical activity, find things that bring joy to you. If you like dancing, you can do that. If you like going for a walk, playing tennis, playing, some kind of sport is definitely going to help, like a kapha, or just Zumba or whatever dance that you like. It's really going to help. And yes, Dr. Rajan says reducing your quantity of food will also help reduce kapha 100%. So fasting, intermittent fasting is extremely important for a kapha type. Try to drink water between meals and not eat anything. Try
Mhm,
to snack. And often, people are emotional eaters. So
mhm,
this is one thing that we've been discussing in the spring cleanse, that oh, I feel compelled to eat more, or I'm really hungry and I feel I can't stop. So one thing you can take is, take a plate whichever you eat in and just fill it once. So make that one point that whatever I add now, that's all I'm going to eat. I'm not going to go for a second helping,
mhm.
because kaphas really struggle with portion size and they love food, right? I mean, I love food,
Me
absolutely. So
too.
if if you fill your plate just once, put everything that you need and try to avoid those second helpings, it will make sure you're not eating too much. So this is one simple remedy I can give you.
Mhm. So when we say in two times a day, that would mean a lunch and a dinner, and that's about it.
Yeah, or you can have a brunch, right?
Okay.
If you are really hungry and your digestion is good, then you can have breakfast, lunch, dinner,
Okay.
right? So something like if you have a late breakfast, maybe like 9 o'clock, then you can do your lunch at 12 or 1, and then you can have dinner earlier at 5 and then fast. So that's a little extreme for those that are not used to it. But even if you start with 3 meals a day and
Mhm.
avoid any of the snacking, which we are so commonly used to,
So
that
does snacking also mean coffee or tea? That is okay,
see
like
black
during the day one or two times.
see tea, if you have it by itself, it's not going to trigger a lot of your insulin response. But again, it's a stimulant, and if you're okay with it, you can handle it, you can have it. But
Mhm,
most people end up having some biscuits or cookies or
mhm,
something with the
mhm,
tea, right? So that
mhm.
becomes a snack, or
Yeah,
some
yeah,
salty, or maybe some nuts.
yeah.
So
Then
I would
that's a snack.
avoid that. Yeah. So that has to be avoided. So if you want to have tea, that's fine. Just have the
Mhm,
tea
mhm.
and warm beverages all the time. So nothing cold. So kaphas,
Yeah,
absolutely ice creams and frozen yogurts are your enemies.
yeah.
All fast foods are your enemies. And it's sad because I know everybody loves those. And there
Mhm.
are different versions, you can make on your own as well. So if you want to have an ice cream, maybe I don't know, have like a spiced ice cream.
Okay. What about fruits? Is Vaishali asking as a snack?
So fruits, you can eat it as a snack by itself. Again, a lot of people are used to fruit salads mixing two or three together, which is not the best thing.
Mhm.
You can have fruit by itself, definitely you can, but don't make it your staple diet. I've often seen people changing to healthy eating habits, and the first thing they do is they start eating a lot more fruit, right? So for a
Mhm.
kapha, because that is still this excess sugar that you're getting in the system, and this is important for somebody who has a family history of diabetes, right? So
Mhm.
if you have a family history of diabetes, or if you have a borderline blood sugar, your doctor has asked you to watch, then you have to cut down on the sugars or fruits as well.
Okay.
Fruits that are recommended for kapha are berries typically. So anything
Okay.
that's not super sweet, right? So berries are fine. Apples that are astringent are fine. So apples are not like super sweet.
Mhm.
Any If you buy it a slightly unripe, anything that becomes super ripe is going to increase, the kapha.
Mhm.
So those fruits, berries, plums, peaches, you can have fruits for sure, but don't mix too many fruits together. And when it
Mhm.
comes to grains, yeah, same with more salads as well. Yeah. So salads, again, raw salads, not the best idea. Always having some cooked greens,
Mhm.
cooked greens are going to be more fiber and more digestible fiber, and the spices also help. And see, there is kaphas tend to get constipated as well, right?
Mhm.
So the vata kind of constipation is more because of a lot of dryness in the gut. You're not drinking enough water, you don't have enough fat, so everything turns dry. Kapha has more to do with this sluggishness of the digestive fire, that your fire is taking a long time to process the food because
Mhm.
you're eating a heavy meal, and that's why things aren't moving, right?
Mhm.
So what that manifests is sometimes when you're pooping, there could be like it's really sticky, and there could be some you'll have to clean the toilet pot well, because I know I don't want to kind of go into
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but that is a truth as well. So some, if you're seeing, if you're having a bowel moment which is extremely, there could be mucus, or it feels that it sinks, or it really stings, then you're creating more ama in the system, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And kapha, because of the sluggish digestive fire, again they have a tendency to create more of this ama.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
Your fire is low, the digestion is not as good, it's going to create ama, and that's when you start feeling this joint pain and aches and all those, right? So
Okay.
that is something you have to be careful with. So when in doubt, for kapha, always eat less, right? So, Hanka is asking how to get rid of unproportional fat or kapha, example on belly, hips, otherwise skinny. So, the belly fat is not kapha. Kapha is a dosha, right? The fat we're talking about is dhatu or tissue, and kapha, like fat, is a kapha like tissue. So, for sure, there's that correlation. Now, when we talk about belly or when we talk about hips, it is to do with more hormones. Belly
Mhm.
could be excess sugar. If you're having, the insulin will deposit rest of the unused sugar as fat on the belly region.
Mhm.
High amounts of stress create high amounts of cortisol, and this cortisol is also going to create a lot of muscle breakdown and start storing fat. And even the hip region is mainly like estrogen, which is a female hormone, right? If you're having too much estrogen, very low progesterone, that can create excess fat as well. The simplest thing right now is, the one thing you have to do is balance your hormones, like try to figure out what's creating the imbalance. That's the number one thing. But second thing, as I mentioned, is the udvartana or the dry rub. So if you
Mhm.
do a dry rub on your body with triphala powder
Okay.
on
Mhm.
your buttocks or your belly, that will also help, right? Also, taking triphala internally is a good cleanse for a kapha, right?
Mhm.
Always take it with hot water at bedtime, and that will give you a nice gut cleanse. But it's also called, triphala is also called lekhan, which means that it can scrape the fat of your body, right?
Wow. Okay.
Now, if
Mhm.
you are otherwise, you know, good everywhere else, but you just have belly and hips, then you
Mhm.
don't want to take too much triphala. You can take it for your digestion if your digestion is struggling, but this localized, massaging with the dry powder is also going to help you, right?
Okay.
I can see more of us have more people have joined. We are discussing Kapha Prakriti. If you have any questions for us, do let me know. And I'm pretty excited about this talk. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Fun to talk about your own self. Yeah.
It has been a good engaging session, though. A lot of people have got their answers, and thanks to Dr. Rajan as well for letting us know his
Yeah.
observations and inputs as well. Yeah, Bhanka is saying thank you. Vishali says thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you. Yeah, so figure like always check in with yourself, check in with your diet and
Mhm,
see the one thing that I have observed is, whether we talk about a vegan diet or a paleo diet, like paleo, keto are strictly not going to work for a kapha, right?
mhm,
But if you go
mhm,
vegan and if you have too many pastas and you're having heavy amounts of tofu,
mhm.
again, they're heavy foods to digest. So
Right.
you will end up feeling bogged down. So always, cooked salads, like half your plate should be like not raw salad, I'm saying, but cooked green vegetables.
Start right.
You
Yeah.
can have some lentils, then you can have some grains as well, right? But a lot of fiber, cooked fiber is needed for a kapha type to move
Mhm.
as well. There.
Important,
Yeah.
important. Mhm.
Okay, so thank you all for watching this. We will be back next week.
Thank you so much. And we'll be talking about Kapha Vikriti. That
Yeah,
is, I think, very, very important to know as well.
yeah.
And thank you, Manjari, for such an insightful session
Oh,
today.
you're
Thank you
most
so much.
welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you, everyone.